All right, so you just watched the Shark Tank video, and then you watched a second video to start off part two, which was Dalton Conley, who's our textbook author, explaining the difficulty in measuring social class and what's included in that. So we're going to talk about social class and social mobility here. So first off, how do we determine social class? It's really not a clear-cut variable that we use. So like Dalton Conley explained, there's been a historical neglect of including wealth as a measure of social class. And part of this too might be that wealth can be really kind of tricky to calculate. Your value of your assets might be changing constantly, especially things like if the stock market tanks, and that's where a lot of your wealth is. But an interesting point that Conley brings up here is that with education, there's a lot of within family variation. That with a set of siblings, if one sibling goes to college and another does not, that they can really have different outcomes because education makes such a big difference. But in terms of wealth, wealth is pretty similar within a family. That wealth is carried on from generation to generation. I wanted to bring in here too the textbook's definition of stratification, because this matters in terms of social class. So stratification means the hierarchical organization of a society into groups with differing levels of power, social prestige, or status, and economic resources. And so what we're focusing a lot in our unit here is prestige and resources. So your position in the stratified social order, the way that our social order is organized, is called our socioeconomic status, abbreviated by SES, or social class. And it's typically measured by these 5 things. So Conley says there's 3 traditional things, and I've added wealth and then the parent stuff here too. So we consider one's income, their wealth, their education level, their occupation in terms of their, especially in terms of their occupation prestige, and then usually their parents' education and occupation as well, because we know that family is such a big determinant of social class. If you see on the PowerPoint here, I've linked this link to the Pew Research Center. They have something called a social class calculator, so you can enter in your information, and then it compares you with the other adults in your area. So that's just an option if you're interested in doing that. All right. So in terms of social mobility, let's talk about social mobility next. So social mobility means moving between different social positions within a system. And the textbook talked about how there's lots of different types of systems. We'll be focusing on the system in the United States. Movements can be horizontal or vertical. And so horizontal social mobility typically means some type of change in jobs, but the same status. The idea of, if it's 2 ladders next to each other, you're just changing from the rung on one ladder to the same rung on the next ladder. Maybe it's the same type of job, it's the same manager job at a new company. Whereas vertical mobility, that can be ascending, so going up, or descending, going down. So this usually means some type of promotion or demotion. So we're going to look at an example here from The Office, where Jim becomes co-manager. And so I won't set up the clip for you here. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. But then after the clip, I'll talk about it here. So as you watch the clip here, think on your own, what type of social mobility is happening in this example, and how would you explain it? What can you pull from the clip to explain the social mobility? So watch the clip and then continue on. The next video in part 2 will be posted after the Office clip.